Hello, my name is Diana Castro, and you've tuned in to Leaders with a Mission. And if you are a woman in corporate America and you want to up-level your leadership and have more meaningful success, the person I have here today will be a treat for you, so stay tuned. Let me tell you a little bit about her. Her name is Patricia Arboleda, and she's a successful certified executive and leadership coach. She's a former Fortune 500 senior executive, and her mission is to close the gender gap in senior level roles. She helps women accelerate their success, take their careers to the next level, and courageously build the futures that they want and deserve. And with you, Patricia.
Hey, how are you, Diana? How are you doing? I'm super happy to be here.
Thank you for coming.
No, it's my pleasure. I'm super excited to be here with you and having this conversation.
I know, I love that. While we were behind the scenes, we were kind of talking about the main thing that you're really passionate about. So, but before we get into that conversation, tell me a little bit about you and how you became this executive coach for women entrepreneurs.
Of course. So I was 25 years in corporate, moving up the ladder and living in different regions, countries, leading multicultural teams. And although I really enjoyed my job, one of the things that I mostly enjoyed was to be able to help people transform and grow. So because I'm passionate about that and I want to make a difference, when I turned 50, I decided that it was time for me to move on and do something that was more aligned with my purpose. And so I started working on putting together or starting my business and to focus on helping women and Latinos and in general, so that they didn't have to go through their careers feeling burned out or exhausted as I once did.
Beautiful. So tell me about this desire to support women into a higher level of meaningful success, because I that's the part that is key here. It's not about success for the sake of success. Mm-hmm. Tell me about, how do you define that?
In every coaching engagement that I have, or every time that I work with a woman or a group of women, the first thing that we work on is on understanding what's their definition of success. Because your definition of success is different than my definition of success. And sometimes when women say, I want to be a VP of whatever, or I want to grow into this different role, I always want to understand why. And so that's why they need to start by understanding and connecting with their own definition of success, not what people expect from them, which is one thing that as women we have the tendency to do. We have the tendency to focus on trying to do what everybody is expecting us to do. So we start with understanding, okay, this is what I want. This is what brings me purpose. This is what I want to achieve. And then we start working on how to achieve it.
I love it. And what is, to you, in your opinion, and we were talking about this before, to you, what is the number one paralyzer that stops women from achieving their next level of success?
So I'm going to answer the question in two ways, okay? Because the first thing that we do after we understand what is their definition of success, we work on understanding what is stopping them from getting there, okay? And the first thing that we find is that we all have a lot of limiting beliefs. And the beliefs that we have about ourselves and the things that we have been told and society and everything, that all becomes a limiting belief. And so one of those limiting beliefs is the need to be perfect, or the belief of not being enough. And that's kind of, I call it the root cause of not being able to advance where we want to go. And therefore, the next thing that I do after we define success is understand and become aware of what are your limiting beliefs. Normally, no matter what the belief is, it goes down to, I'm not enough. So we work on reframing and changing and rewiring that not being enough. And that really is a way to empower and grow.
I love that you're touching the subject of perfectionism and not being enough. To me, they're kind of like the same in one. Like the feeling that, to me, perfectionism is this constantly fear of like you're not good enough, like the fear of feeling not good enough because it's never good enough, like it's never perfect. You never arrive. You're always, you don't get to enjoy the journey because it's really is never perfect, right? So what is your approach with someone who kind of encounters this monster that I feel it's embedded in a lot of women and in the cultural among women?
Yeah. So believe it or not, I mean, I've coached and worked with hundreds of women. No matter the level they are in their career, normally women, I'm going to say more than 90% of the women that I've worked with have perfectionism or suffer from perfectionism. And I am one, and I perfectionist, and what I call myself is a perfectionist in recovery because I'm working my way out of that trap, I'm going to call it. And so we were talking about the limiting beliefs, and where does that not feeling enough comes from is basically from the things that you are told when you're little. And as women, when we are little, we're always told that we need to be the best at everything that we do, that you need to have always the best grades, that you need to be the one giving the example to all your brothers and sisters. All of that pressure that comes from, very young age. And when you don't have the best grades, or when you don't have like the achievement that everybody is expecting from you, you start feeling that it's not enough. And that is where that feeling of not being enough comes from. Normally, more than, I'm going to say 90% of everything that we have in our brains is in our subconscious mind. All the neurological connections are created there when we are around 9 years old. So that's why, it's very important to understand where it comes from, to be able to notice that that's not real anymore because it's something that you interpreted from something that you were told when you were very little. And if it is not real now, why are you letting it hold you back? The thing is that because it is subconscious, normally you're not able to make decisions because you're not aware of it. So the first thing that we need to do is being aware of where it comes from, to be able to rewire, change, and then...
And that's like your special sauce. Like
yes,
that's what you love to do with women.
I love it because, the transformation is amazing. Women come to me saying, I want to be more self-confident, right? And I say, well, the first thing that we need to do is understand that it's not confidence what you're looking for, is courage. And that's why my motto is don't be perfect, be courageous, right? Because we need courage to make the decision to say, okay, I'm going to do the work. I'm going to do everything it takes to become aware and then rewire. And once you do that, it's amazing the connection that you get with your inner power, because the power is there. It's within you, right? It's just a matter of letting it be and let it happen.
I remember I was telling you about 4 years ago, I was talking about perfectionism online. Like I was actually making videos about perfectionism because a lot of the women we work with in camera, they want to be perfect. And I remember like feeling like, but for perfect, like I would argue the fact that perfect feels fake. Like if you're too perfect and it's too awkward, like people want to see the funny and the perfect imperfection that you are and your quirks and your, and like the weird, we want to see your weirdo, right?
Exactly.
And like getting women to kind of like understand that was so difficult for them. Like I remember my husband was like, you're going to talk about perfectionism? Oh my God, like be careful because a lot of women will reject you for you. Like, and I was like, oof, but it's someone has to be talking about it because we have a huge opportunity to give people more freedom, more leniency to be themselves. What do you often find women who are encountering with perfectionism? When you have witnessed their transformation, what has been that aha moment for you? What do you think is the reframe that they're making?
So the reframe is understanding that their belief is not true. Their belief of not being enough is not true. Once they understand that, and once they find evidence that that belief is not true, and they're able to kind of like understand what the reality is, that they're more than enough, that they're powerful, that they have a lot to give, that they have an important value proposition to offer, that their uniqueness is beautiful, whatever that is, then they feel empowered and the level of perfectionism starts like reducing. Now, it takes time and it takes a lot of work, but it's important to do it. And for us, I mean, you have daughters, right?
Yes.
So for us and for the people that have daughters, it's very important to become aware of that, because our daughters today are really faced with one additional thing that we were not facing before, which is social media. And everybody needs to or wants to be so perfect in social media that adds another level of pressure on top of these teenagers. And I call perfectionism as the invisible ceiling for us to be able to advance. And perfectionism doesn't only impact us in our careers, but also in our personal lives and everywhere. So if we can make a difference to the young girls that are now growing into adults, to lessen up that level of pressure that they're putting on themselves, it's going to make a huge difference for them in their lives. So we need to really become aware of that and start working with them.
I love that you're mentioning that, because it gives us a more perspective on this new generation. But then I can also hear in the back of my head, like people who are like cheerleaders of perfectionism, because they have been trained to feel that perfectionism is the ultimate, most valuable asset. Like your perfectionism, you always want things done right. What is the alternative? If perfectionism isn't it, then what do they grab on to allow them to have more ease and peace and flow in their life?
So we were talking before about this, and what's really important is to thrive for excellence, right? And when you do, basically, you're looking to do always your best. In fact, I don't know if you've read the 4 agreements, but one of them is always give your best, do your best. And if you think about the growth mindset is all about not rewarding the result, but rewarding the effort, okay? So when we start working on all of those things together, then we're basically always trying to do our best, always doing the best we can, and in the process, and the result, whatever that is still going to be a success. Because that's the other thing, we need to be able to see failure in a different perspective. When we are perfectionists, we think that failure is the worst. And the fear of failure is one of the things that really becomes like the thing that stops us from moving forward. And when you see failure and you as an opportunity to grow, to learn a different way of doing things, to see or learn a different perspective, and you kind of like destigmatize or take the stigma out of the failure, then you're free to do things, and because you know that no matter what, you're gonna win. It's going to be a win.
I love it.
Anyways.
And as you were saying that, I remember something that I recently heard, which was something like a company reframe the mind of the salespeople, and instead of telling them you have to make X amount of sales, what they ask them to do, because they understand that sales in that particular industry is all about the numbers, like how much people they reach. They're like, you're supposed to get 20 no's every day. Like that was their goal. Their goal was not to have 5 sales. Their goal was to achieve a certain amount of no's, because they knew that in the process of getting the no, they were going to find the person that said, yeah, I totally want that. So they reframe no as like, that's your win. And I love that perspective, especially as an entrepreneur for me, because it's like, if it can feel very defeating when people are saying no, but what if no was another step closer, and no defining it as like failure, right? Like the no or the stop, instead of looking at it as like, oh, nobody wants me, it was more like, I'm closer because I'm closer to the amount of no's I have to get the yeses.
I love it. In fact, one of the exercises that I do when I'm doing the coaching or in my programs is to get people comfortable with the no. And so I ask them to go and ask for things that are kind of crazy, and they know that they might get a no for an answer, but it's okay. They need to start feeling comfortable with it.
They need to explore the uncomfortableness to get comfortable with it, so that they can go to the next level that they deem success.
And if you think about it, for example, in negotiation for women, women are hesitant to ask for a raise, for example, because what if they say no? And I always ask them, yeah, but what if they say yes, right? It would be great, right? And when they start thinking in that way, I always tell them, ask yourself the other question. Try to train your brain to ask the other positive question. What could happen if it works? What could happen if
I love it.
You are super successful doing or taking the risk? I mean, it's more, you're going to win a lot more than what you think you're going to lose by not doing it. So yeah.
I love it. I remember when you were saying that, it reminded me of, I heard someone really wise once said, if you ask, you are now 50% into a yes. And I was like, why? And they're like, yeah, because if you don't ask, it's already a no. Like, you don't ask, you already have a no absolute. If you ask, you have a 50% chance, because there's only yes or no. What if they say yes? So that truly has been one of the things that I use myself whenever I come to a situation and I'm like, oh, should I do this? And it's like, what if they say yes? Like, what do I got to lose?
Exactly.
So I love that, giving ourselves a different framework of how to look at things to achieve the things that we want, to at least pursue them. In that, not getting comfortable with what the status quo is.
And that's a very interesting thing that we also need to consider, is we get comfortable in the status quo, right? And my role as a coach, for example, when I'm working with women, is to push them to get out of the comfort zone. And sometimes they say, no, but I don't feel comfortable. And I give them the homework, you need to go and do it. And one of the most rewarding things is that more than 70% of the women that go through the program or that get promoted. And so that's amazing. And that's the knowing that they're having those wins is like, there's nothing better than that. It gives me goosebumps every time they call me, I got it, or I got the job that I wanted, or look at what I'm doing. And so that's like
icing in the cake.
Yes, it's beautiful.
I love that you're saying all of this. Like, let me ask you this staple question in this show, and that is, what is your personal definition of leadership?
Okay, for me, leadership is allowing yourself to be authentic, is allowing yourself to be vulnerable, and to love the people that you lead. Because that's what will make a difference for you as a leader. The other thing is, with leaders nowadays, what really does make that or creates the level of engagement that we want as leaders and the people, is to have the people around us to be clearly motivated and really loving what they're doing. So we need to help them connect with purpose And we also need them to be able to ask questions and let them find the answers instead of telling them everything they need to do. That's leadership.
I love it. I got from what you were talking, and what I got from you is that your definition or the way that you lead this woman is by allowing them to self-discover, allowing them to go inside of themselves and find what is true to them so that they can find the way to find their own meaningful version of success, which can be or cannot be whatever they originally had in mind. For giving them permission to choose on their own what is their own path and to create the steps. And that's, I think, where you come into play as a coach, that you allow them to have the techniques and the strategies that could lead them to their final destination. That's what I'm like reading between the lines.
Yes, exactly. You got it. So one of the things that I was thinking while you were talking is, I remember once I was working with a VP for Latin America, and she's Latina. And she called me because she was having issues with time management, okay? And so we started working, and yes, time management was an issue. So we did all the work on time management. And then little by little, we started uncovering the real root cause of her issues with time management. And it was nothing but the perfectionism, because she wasn't delegating, because she was doing things more than once. And then all of that was basically
stopping her.
And so little by little, once she discovered that, she also discovered that she was stopping herself from applying to a different job that she wanted. And so she started with time management. But little by little, with all the work, she was discovering the real things that she needed to work on, and then found her way to do what she really wanted to do.
So time management was the symptom, not the cause.
Exactly.
I love it. That's beautiful. And then with all this leadership conversation, I wonder, what books are you reading that are feeding your soul? Like, what are you like consuming? What are you filling your mind and your heart with?
So I read a lot of books at the same time, actually. I have many. And at this moment, I'm reading one about the imposter syndrome from Valerie Young. And it's basically, I'm reading it because imposter syndrome is also one of the consequences of perfectionism. So I'm interested on really understanding a little bit more. The other one that I read, and I recommend a lot, is I Am Enough from Marisa Peer. And the next one is Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway. Because all of those things will have a huge impact on really owning our own power.
Yeah, and owning our own blockage. Like, oh, this is what I'm doing. Okay, thanks. And like continuing. Beautiful. So before we leave, we must know, where can we get more of you? Where can we find your information? Where can people get in touch with you?
Of course. So I have they can always find me on LinkedIn, Patricia Arboleda, Executive Coach. I'm also on Instagram, Arboleda Coaching, and then my website, Arboleda Coaching, or they can email me, patricia@arboledacoaching.com.
Beautiful. Yeah. Thank you so much for being here and for sharing how you support women. I love, love, love everything that you're doing. So now my invitation is for you. If you are looking to amplify your visibility and to spread kindness and goodness to the world with the power of video, I'm going to invite you to visit us at forproductions.com, and I'll see you on the next one.